After 3 days of quiet diplomacy with Saudi Arabia, the UN is now changing course, laying out the dire scenario if the blockade of Yemen isn't lifted.
There will be a famine in Yemen. It will not be like the famine that we saw in South Sudan earlier in the year, where tens of thousands of people were affected. It will not be like the famine which cost 250,000 people their lives in Somalia in 2011. It will be the largest famine the world has seen for many decades, with millions of victims.
The response from the Security Council seemed very guarded. The current president, the Italian ambassador, read out a statement strongly condemning the missile fired by the Houthis, but barely mentioning the country responsible for the blockade. You have strongly condemned the missile by the Houthis. Given Mr. LOWCOCK's dire warning, isn't it now time to strongly condemn the country that is blockading Yemen, not allowing the humanitarian aid in, Saudi Arabia?
The focus by USG LOWCOCK was absolutely on the humanitarian aspects of the conflict. We also know that any, military escalation or military attack is having impact on the humanitarian situation. So, of course, this is why we have decided to issue these press elements.
The UN says Yemen is the worst humanitarian disaster in the world. After years of conflict and an epidemic of cholera, people in Hodeida, a port where aid, food and medicine should be flowing into the country, have a sense of despair.
People have no jobs, no life, and the world is almost at a standstill, almost finished. To add insult to injury, they closed down the port.
The price of a bag of flour was 7,000 riyals. It's now 8,500 riyals. Beans are now the price of a chicken. What can we do? May God help us.
Mr. LOWCOCK's comments from this podium brought some of that reality from Yemen to the Security Council. But for now, they've responded with very carefully chosen words rather than any concrete action. James Bays, Al Jazeera, at the United Nations.